Hello everyone, it's me, Thomas Fixter, coming to you with a video. The dark side of authentic leadership. Contrary to popular belief, effective leaders are really authentic, and effective leaders can be brutally ineffective. While we hate to admit it, the ability to fake it is the critical ingredient of leadership potential. Few myths are the preserves, as the notion that leaders ought to be authentic. Indeed, the self-help and popular coaching literature are inundated with the suggestion just as be yourself. Don't worry about what people think of you, and if you think you are great, you are. Although such feel-good advice is obviously comforting, wouldn't it be nice if others just celebrate the most spontaneous, unfiltered, and impulsive version of ourselves, and we had to pleasure whatsoever to behave, even in critical workstations? It is in stark contrast with the rather more sobering and tenuous reality, namely that faking it is a critical ingredient of leadership talent. In fact, if you are unable or unwilling to adjust your behavior to meet social expectations, adhere to this dominant etiquette, take into account other people's perspectives, and make an effort to manage impressions to present yourself in a desirable rather than unrepresented, uninitiative, or uncensored way, then you won't just fail to be effective leader, but also fail to be a leader in the first place. A quick glance at the current state of affairs in leadership should make it pretty clear to anyone that efficiency comes at a high price, paid not only by leaders, but also and especially their followers. Most of the social, political, and economic problems leaders cause are a direct result of their unwillingness or inability to initiate their authentic self, usually because they feel too powerful, immune, or entitled to care about the consequences of acting too little consideration of what others need, and too much consideration for their own selfish interests. We all know that power corrupts, but we rarely spend time trying to understand the specific psychological mechanisms underpinning this process, and they most likely have to do with decrease in leaders' motivation to keep harnessing a positive reputation, to maintain a focus on faking good as they were there when they were less powerful and motivated to get to the top. Among politicians and heads of state, this explains why even dictators start as relevant leaders before developing into toxic agents, and why charismatic leaders will once they stop keeping their narcissistic tendencies in check and no longer give a damn about what others think of them. Unless they idolize themselves, the main leadership problems in the world don't happen because leaders fake it, but because they decide to stop faking it and suddenly feel the right to just be themselves. To be sure, some people may like you for who you really are deep down, which of course requires a great deal of knowledge of who you are and getting to spend a great deal of time with you, whether they are your family, best friend, spouse, or psychotherapist. The scientific literature suggests very clearly that in most instances they will get to know you better than you know yourself, which is not hard since, generally speaking, humans are quite self-deceived and deluded. We don't do self-awareness very well and are much more interested in reality distortion and self-enhancement than accurate self-insights. This is not a trivial issue because when we ask people to be authentic, we need to understand their authentic self in the sense of general self-view. May neither be authentic, accurate, nor honest to begin with. For instance, when you ask people whether they are funny, creative, original, good, or nice, around 89% of people say yes, even though that is statistically impossible, and they're not lying to you, but to themselves. By the same token, our desire to justify our positive self-views to ourselves leads to equivalent self-serving imitations of reality, and the ability to accept blame and responsibility for our mistakes and our proclivity to bring others down or see others as boring, uncreative, wrong, evil, or stupid, etc. If that's authentic self, then the world is better off if we can hide it, not just from others, but also from ourselves. Nobody wants to follow a leader who comes across as fake, but this has little to do with whether leaders are being themselves or even honest with themselves. In their decisions and behaviours, leaders benefit a great deal from being perceived as authentic by others, but that requires a great deal of attractive attention focus. It requires being consistent in one's actions and words and maintain your professional persona across settings. Keep your persona self-private. Importantly, it requires leaders to get to terms with the fundamental fact that authentic and virtual version of themselves is someone who perhaps 4 or 5 people have learned to love or at least tolerate. Everyone else is particularly those who work for them or depend on them X expects them to display the best version of themselves, acting smart, which show an effective rather than authentic way. When it comes to leadership, we have a big opportunity to improve and make the state of affairs better, not for leaders, but for everyone else. The opportunity is to distinguish between style and substance and between what's good for lead and what's good for everyone else. On the former, the issue is pretty efficient. Fundamentally, just like competent charisma is about style rather than substance, we shouldn't care so much about whether leaders really mean what they say and do deep down, so long as what as they do is good for us. This applies to the issue of whether leaders are true or true to their values. So this can be good or bad depending on what those values are. For instance, Mayo, Style and Hitler were true to their values. We would have been better off if they hadn't. To a lesser degree, this applies to any leader, including proper leaders. If their values or judgment are wrong, then all we can hope for is that they are not themselves, and that they learn to follow other people's guidance decisions instead. On the latter, we have a clear choice to either continue seeking leadership of personal privilege, a sign of status and power, and admire those who get to the top in respect of what they do for others. In which case, authenticity may be regarded as an extra skills or dimension of talent, as in, whoa, they got there by just being themselves, or start focusing on what it means to have certain people in charge of us. Control resource and being responsible for people's welfare and well-being. It seems clear to me that between a leader who is authentic but incompetent and one who has worked hard against their nature to act in a common way and have beneficial effects on others, the choice shouldn't be too hard. Well guys, that time again. Thank you for watching. If you would subscribe to my channel, like and share and comment on the video.